Okay, how you all doing? It's another day in the life of Wu-Sabat, OSM, Our Souls Matter. Ask us anything, you know, because it's all about your development, your growth, our development, our growth. Remember, you can call in live, UK area code +44 number 753 996 3882, and already we have a caller. So Rahubat, greetings caller, where you calling from and what's your name and your question, please?
Okay, it's me again, Karith Muir from Jamaica.
Rahubat Zamal, how you doing?
I'm good.
Tua, so go ahead.
Okay, so this is the last time I'm going to ask about this topic, but I've still been looking into it because it fascinates me so much. Now, these people that we're always discussing, the half extraterrestrial, half human people, called the Nephilim, or whatever other name they may go by. You said that people didn't like what their nature was like because many of them were violent a lot of the times. But these beings, I'm sure that there were Nephilim that weren't always violent. Am I right about that?
Well, the problem is in the language and the words that you're using, because when you say these people and use, English is the problem, because some of the phrases that you're using, we have to be very clear and defined, because when we say these people or when you say Nephilim, you have to break down what Nephilim actually means. What does that mean? You see, and it literally just means to fall or to come down, right? So when you say the Nephilims, you're talking about beings that came down here or fell or came from somewhere else outside the planet to come here. So yeah, what is your actual question? Because when you define which exact beings you're talking about, then we can go into who they are, what their nature is, and there are disagreeable and agreeable in all beings. And
Oh,
so
you want me to specify which being I'm talking about, because some of them were descended from the Anunnaki, some of them came from the sons of God, some of them came from probably reptilians or something like that, right?
okay, so what is your actual question? I think it's better if we just if you ask the question, because you
My
yeah, then I can
my
address the
question,
question.
yes, my question is the Nephilim weren't always violent.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, some of them were and some of them weren't. Because when you're saying Nephilim, you're saying these giants that fell down or that were cast down here. And with all the beings that came here, they're agreeable and disagreeable amongst them, which is why the people on the planet today are the children of these beings, including us and ourselves. When I say these beings, because literally, when you're reading these books, they refer to, when you say these beings, that's one way that it gets translated as Elohim, or the many different names that are used. So when I say including us, meaning that you yourself and the people on the planet come by way of extraterrestrials that come from outside of the planet. Now you have to start to break down which ones do you come from, because a lot of people are talking about the Anunnaki, and that's because of the spell of religion, because everyone is trapped in these books that are in your religions today, which are from the Anunnaki's writings from Sumer or Shinar in Mesopotamia, which is today Iraq. This is where they landed. And you're talking about, the family of Anu and then you have our ancestors who came from somewhere else, known as the overseers or Panatharu. So then you have other beings, Pleiadians, Draconians, Greys, reptilians, different beings came at different times. So, that's what I'm saying. Like, what is the actual question that you want to ask so that we can address it properly?
No, the reason I want you to understand that when I'm asking this question, I wanted to understand fully what the nature of the Nephilim was like. So that's why I kept asking
Right.
you
So there are two
that
natures.
specific question.
There are two natures of the beings that came down. You can read in Genesis, the first ones, they would tell you that, they had offspring with the women. But then you have another group that raped the women, went in onto, and, it's more of a disagreeable and an aggressive way that they did that to basically produce offspring. But what I'm saying to you is that all beings have disagreeable, even when you talk about the draconians, the reptilians, you have disagreeable ones and you have agreeable ones. But you have to break down because what people are looking at in terms of agreeable and disagreeable gets misinterpreted into good and bad. But good and bad is subjective because the person who is benefiting from the act may not look at the act as being bad, but the person who is subjected to the act in a negative way is going to say that is bad. You see, so we have to be very clear that the natures of these beings is based on what you're composed of in terms of your DNA and so forth. So on the planet today, you have the root races who all have, their root from these extraterrestrials, some being disagreeable, some being agreeable. And that's why on the planet today you have the children of the disagreeables that lean more to that disagreeable side and they do disagreeable acts and create wars, murders, killings, wickedness, all kinds of things because that's in their nature from these disagreeable beings that they were bred or, made from. But I still, so it's your question, are the Nephilims agreeable or disagreeable? Is that the question? Because I think I've answered
Yes,
already that
yes,
there are both.
that is basically the question, and you answered it. Thank you.
Okay. But yeah, feel free
Okay.
to ask, any questions. That's why we're here. Wu-Sabat is here to clear the confusion. But yeah, if you have another question, just call back, all right?
Okay, later.
That what? Okay. Yeah, Rahubat, I know we keep trying to explain to people that these books, religion, as hard as a pill that it might be for some people to swallow, that was not an agreeable thing because it's been used to confuse people and to trap people's minds. So we're in a day and time where Wu-Sabat is here and we keep trying to ask questions and live in these books when we really do need to move on from them. Now, of course, if you're a sincere seeker of truth and you're still, trying to get clarity of the books, the Bible, the Quran, these religious books, then we will help you because we were taught by the master teacher, Partner Babyanun. He walked us through these schools and so that the spell was lifted from us, you see. So, but really, we are in a day and time known as the hereafter where these religions and these books have expired, so we shouldn't really focus too much on dead information. We should be focusing on Wu-Sabat and what you need now for your liberation and then salvation, you see. So Yeah, but obviously, if you have a question and you're still stuck in the books and you need some clarity, we'll do our best. All right. Let's see if we have any questions in the chat. Um, Abdul Kudus, big bro, I was born in it. My dad passed, and back in 1984, Pops Dr. Malachi Z. York, my Abu had him kiss me and my third eye. Okay, Tawa, no question. Rahubat Musa, much shook and peace and blessings. Free Dr. Malachi Z. York. Okay, Check Chaser. We discussed beings last live about beings coming to Earth and potentially putting us on a dinner plate, yeah? Will there be signs before their return, and is 2030 a special year? Okay, they are already here. This has been happening for a long time. Certain agreements were actually drawn up between extraterrestrials and certain governments, and they have been taking beings for food for a very long time. And what ends up happening is a lot of missing people that cannot be accounted for. And, so when you say, it's just that when the master teacher, Panda Babyanun, Dr. Malachi Z.K. York, started to really tell us about the nature of these beings that you're calling gods and angels, etc. These are extraterrestrials, as the last caller was asking. These are beings that some of them are carnivorous and they're very disagreeable in terms of they like flesh and they eat flesh, and that's why throughout these religious books you will see them asking for offerings and blood being spilt on the altar. Read the book of Leviticus in the Bible and you will see this. Remember that Abrahamic religions are one and the same because their patriarch is Abraham. So whether it's Islam of 1400 years ago or the new Christianity of 2000 years ago, or what they called the Old Testament, which is really dealing with the Torah, which is really the 5 books of Moses, 4,004 years ago. All of them go back to Abraham, who goes back to his father, who goes back to these Anunnaki. So they're all one and the same. So when you say these beings coming to Earth and potentially putting us on a dinner plate, they've been taking people, and it's just becoming more and more rampant and more people. And when you say the signs, will they be signs before their return? They're already here and they've been here, and it's just ramping up. And when you say it's 2030 a special year for who? We are living in a day and time where it's referred to as the great and dreadful day of the Lord. It's going to become more and more apparent to people what we've been saying by way of our teacher, Dr. Malachi Z. York, since the 60s about extraterrestrials. Back then, most people didn't even consider that what you're calling God, Jesus, Gabriel, all these beings that you're saying are coming from outside of the planet were extraterrestrials. And he was teaching this, that your concept of gods and angels and what you think about heaven and all these places, it's really dealing with extraterrestrials that travel intergalactically. And of course, in 2025, this has become more and more apparent to people, all right? This guy is like Professor X from Wolverine. Excellent knowledge. Thank you, my brother. It's all from the master teacher. Listen, all the information that you hear us teach, we are but merely student teachers. But of course, we have our own personalities, and we are gods just like himself and yourself. and we just give it to you from our perspective or our flavor or the way we see it, but it's really, the master teacher's information. Can you explain the law of one by Ra? Yeah, in reality, to make it very simple, everything is connected to everything, right? It's just that you're dealing with different levels of vibration. And if you start to look at things as energy, because ultimately things break down into vibration, waveforms. Things are pulsating and vibrating. When you look at a waveform, it's just up and down, right? And that's just pulsation, up and down, or in and out. So we breathe in and out. Everything has that kind of like duality in the third dimension, and then there's a middle part that goes between the two, you see. So when you say the law of one, this is when you start to transcend things that are divisive, such as religions, because what religions do is divide people, and everyone claims to be different. And I pointed out that they all come from Abraham when you're dealing with the monotheistic religions. When you get outside of the Abrahamic religions, you still go back to older cultures, but if you study what they say, they're the same stories, just remixed from ancient, what they call Egypt. But all these names that you're using are taught to you by Adamites or Europeans. So you have to say, where's the source of the information? And you go back to the oldest people on the planet, being us as the original beings on the planet, when you go millions of years back. Now, all the people that teach you about religion, they give you a date, 6,000 years ago. Or maybe, they might go a bit further in terms of when you start to deal with like Hinduism and so forth. But you look at the characters, the character that exists, the original, the source, will be in ancient Tamaray or Egypt, or what we call the area that's known as Napata, Meroe, dealing with pre-dynastic, dealing with the beings that were in Neolithic and they were in the Nile Valley. This is what we say when we go back way past the 46 dynasties that people teach you about, going back to the newborns, going all the way back to these beings in ancient Egypt known as the Ogdoads or the 9 Enneads, and going all the way back to beings that came here and seeded this planet from different constellations. Our ancestors from the Orion star system and what you call the Sirius. And then the stories say, for example, the being that existed, we know as Har or Haru or Hiru, which became Horus. Then in Hindu became from Horus, Hara to Hari. Because when you look at languages and study what they call Semitic languages, you see that a lot of the times the vowels are interchangeable. So when you say Hari, as in Hari Krishna, you hear the word Krishna, Christos ties into Christ. Now that goes into it in Sumer as Tammuz, yeah? And then from that, coming into, as we say, the Anunnaki stories, you get it into the Greek, and that becomes Christus, yeah? Horus instead of Hara. So you hear Hara, Hari, Horus. You look at the three words, they all just move in vowels around, okay? And that Horus becomes your Jesus in now Christianity, becomes Isa in Arabic in Islam. So it's just the same story being remixed over time, different cultures being passed off as an original story when it actually isn't. So we have to always remember, go back to the source, the beginning, you see. So they start off with a creation. and they just give you a story being relayed to you of how it all started. But then the person relaying the story had to be there already to know about the story. So this is why when we teach in Wu-Sabat, a lot of the times people will hear something new they've never heard before, because you've been confined within these books. And that's because the people that are teaching you are residents of this planet. Whereas our teacher is somebody that is a visitor, and he has always been able to give us information way ahead of everyone else, and new information that nobody's talking about. And people will say, well, where does he get it from? And then they will go and try to check it out. And he always said, don't believe me, check it out. But he also said there will come a time where I'm going to take you outside, because I'm from outside. It's not like he came on the scene not saying he's not from here. He came on the scene saying, I'm a visitor. I come from a place called Planet Risk in a galaxy known as Ilion. You see, so I'm going to teach you and answer all your questions to a point where I will give you what you want until you learn to want what I have to give, what I have been assigned to come and do. This is a mission, and the mission is to make everything clear. Like he said, set the record straight so that you will know your way. And for those who don't want to evolve and they want to be stuck and stay in these religions that don't change, that just have you stifled in your growth, in your being, that's fair enough. We're not, we don't solicit or try to convert people. We give you the facts, we give you the information, and you, using your divine being within you, make the choice of whether it makes sense and if you want to be raised higher in degrees. All right, so we just need to keep, emphasizing that it's all about Wu-Sabat. So yeah, sorry, going back to the law of one, everything is connected when you transcend all these divisive religions that divide people. You say how? Because you have all of these denominations and denominations and denominations. Then they fight against each other about having arguments about things they do not know. But when you transcend people, places, and things, and you start to realize that what you're composed of, what is really you, is in the inner you, right? Not the physical you. That essence goes back to spirit, soul, mental, and these are intangible in the way that your physical body or the things that are vibrating on the lower vibrations or the material or physical world are. So this is where you start to deal with quantum, as in quantum mechanics, quantum entanglement, dealing with what, the subdivision of atoms going to a point where they no longer are on the physical dense part, but more on the etheric side. And it's about tones and vibration, and we all merge in one, and we refer to this as the all, or the all expanding. You see, so the law of one is that when you look at everything, things are connected, and this is why, there's this thing called cause and effect, and there's a chain reaction of things, and so we're all connected as one. This is why when you say the word alone, you say I'm alone, which would kind of give you the impression that you are one, but really you're saying all one, AL-ONE, or you can say ALLONE, all one. We are all one, but some people only vibrate at a lower density and cannot go to the higher levels, or are trapped within a particular realm. You see, so the law of one is ultimately all is. That's it. All right, hope that helped you, Joa, if I'm pronouncing your name properly. Do we know Do we know any beings that actually like us and we shouldn't fear? Do we know any beings that actually, is it actually like us, or is it like us as in they like you? Yeah, our ancestors like us. Our ancestors are extraterrestrials too. So, and when you say us, that's again another small word, but it's quite vague, because who's the us? You know, where people say, all I want to say is that, what is it? They don't really like us, or something like that. Or even recently, they're not like us, but who's the us? And yeah, we shouldn't fear anything really. To know is to have confidence, and like, just because people are afraid of the unknown. That's what they say. You hear that term all the time. People are afraid of the unknown. But if you know, then you're not going to be afraid. Like, if you know who you are, where you're from, where you're going, what's going to be happening, you have that confidence. And that's what Wu-Sabat does. All right. Dorinda Rahubat, greetings. Miss TBJ Rahubat. Boo Mansa Rahubat. Keon Rahubat. Yeah, the phone line, Abdul, it's a WhatsApp number, so you can ring for free as long as you're on your internet. You have internet access. Any other questions? Do non-black people have the abilities to make it to risk? Again, language, non-black people. Well, we're non-black people, but no. If you're talking, this is what we have to be specific, because non-black people is very vague, because we're not even black ourselves, because that's a term that's been given to us, as you can see, right? I've explained that we're not black, and these labels and these terms we use are part of the technology. But if you're talking about Adamites or Caucasians, when you say non-black, it depends on the person. If they don't have souls, then they're not gonna be able to transcend and go to the higher realms. If you know about the nature of the Adamites, how they were grafted with Homo simian, Homo canine, Homo porcine, this is part of the reason why they cannot go further than certain realms. Like, they can only go up to like 6, unless the females mix with Nagaru or Nagaranadu, and then they can be then raised up. It's very important for us to study and read the scrolls, because sometimes people just, they bounce off of other people's questions, or they hear something and they just immediately ask a question about that thing, without really having the knowledge about what you're really asking. So you have to study, read, because that's what the master asks us to do, so that we can be very clear on what he's teaching. Yeah. So there's, like you said, it's going to come a time when he starts teaching us information which is from outside of what you know, outside of what you're confined to, outside the planet, outside the regular teachings, outside what you've been taught all your life. So you will know that he's a visitor, and you will know that he's very different from others. Remember to help us. Yeah, sometimes we do, we need you. We need your support. And if you're enjoying the content and the work that we do, please help us by, liking, sharing, subscribing. And, it really helps us, because it's all about algorithms. All right. So hit that like button and share the stream to, others. I want to kick with you. Yeah, you can. Remember, you can do one-to-ones as well. We make ourselves very accessible. We're very, easy to reach. If you haven't joined our Telegram group already, then please do so you can be completely in tune and stay up to date with what we're doing. Do you like the Book of Wisdom? Again, there's so many books that claim to be. I know the book you're talking about, but you haven't given the author, and people advertise the Book of Wisdom until they're confronted with real books of wisdom. Hey, Rahubat, greetings, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from, and what's your question, please?
Rahubat, this is Terry.
Oh, Rahubat, Terry. How you doing?
I'm doing my best, my brother. How you doing?
Yeah, likewise, doing my best.
Sure. Yeah, so I had a question regarding memory. Yes, I understand there's a link between memory and our ancestral lineage. Like, whether we are connected to our ancestors through the DNA. Yes, so I wanted to understand, like, how can we access that ancestral memory to give us a clear picture of how our spiritual journey should be.
Okay. Tawat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That was.
this is what Wu-Sabat is here to do, because Wu-Sabat is that tool that helps you to remember who you are. You see, and the actual fact, who you are and not what you accept, is one of the first actual facts I would say you should read, because you literally are out of your mind. I mean, the other scroll, the mind, is another one, because it starts to help you rewire your mind in the way that the synapses are sending information and how you receive information. But yes, who you are and not what you have accepted, because people will accept things and ignore who they really are. When you start to know who you are by way of Wu-Sabat, you start to have the right knowledge. You start to have the right practices. You start to cut off your connection with disagreeable beings or imposters or foreign beings to you who are not connected to you. So then you start to basically like unplug from them and plug to the right ancestors, your family, and then you start to remember, because now you remember the whole point of cutting you off from who you are and saying to you to look outside of yourself, for example, to worship and give your energy and praises to beings other than yourself. Because remember, everything turns into a tone, a vibration, and a frequency. So when you're speaking, the names you use, the words you use, these are all tones. Everything starts with a tone. Even when they say that the scientists say that we came about from a big bang, that bang is a sound. In the Old Testament and New Testament, they tell you in the beginning was the word. Words are spoken, and those words are made up of tones. Even when you break it down to like how you bring about language, because you're dealing with your tongue being able to be shaped in a way to pronounce a tone. So you have the alphabet. You say A, B, but there were languages before English, so you have to go to how those tones were sounded, right? So then, or pronounced. Then those alphabets will help you to form words by arranging different alphabet. Obviously, we're saying alphabet in English, but in our language, we would say that harufat. So those words then are arranged in a particular order to try and convey a message, but collectively those words are giving you a tone, a vibration, and a frequency that has an effect on you. You see, so when your language was taken away, those tones, those vibrations that connect you with your ancestors were basically kind of like channeled in a different direction. So, yeah, what we're saying is that speaking Wu-Sabat, using the tones, using the frequencies will help you to start to remember, because those words became sentences. The sentences got formed into paragraphs, and these paragraphs got formed into chapters. These chapters became books, and now most people are confused with these books, right? Which are mainly translations, which were translated from people who supposedly memorized these words. And you're talking about for thousands of years of continuous mistranslation. So by the time you're here speaking this, what you're calling language, which is really not a language, because it's really a dialect of different words from different dialects and what they call other languages put together. So you're lost. So yes, you have to start to remember who you are, and then you connect with your ancestors, because you can actually break away from that spell that has kept you cut off from them for so long. So yes, the way you remember is to start putting Wu-Sabat to practice, the rituals that help you to communicate with the deities, communicate with your ancestors, and then they will start coming closer to you. They will start to, as you say, communicate with you via your dreams, your visions, your travels into other dimensions, etc. All right, hope that helped. Where were we? Do all races have the abilities to make it to higher dimensions? No, not all races. And this is why they would need to piggy bank off of you. But even then, you have to remember, you are composed of elements that can only exist in particular areas. It's like if you're composed of the atoms that make up paper, right? That's one level of vibration. Now, if you take paper and put it in another environment where you're, let's say fire is composed of a different environment, and paper and fire cannot exist in that environment. So the fire will consume the paper. And it's the same when we start to look at the different realms. So you have the the lowest realm, which is the material plane or the physical realm, which only vibrates on this density, right? And then you have others like the spiritual, like the soul, the mental, and then up to the 9 levels of ether. So no, not everyone, if you don't have a soul, then how can you vibrate on the soul realm? So not all beings make it to the higher realms. That's why some are trapped here, and you have what you call disembodied beings that roam the planet because they can't go to the higher realms or higher dimensions. Okay, there's a long one here. It sounds like a culture determines what our perspective as when we were being raised. However, being black and there are many black people, how do we determine what culture we are that you said fell? Again, try and make your questions as clear as possible. The point is you go back to the original culture. This is why we're saying Wu-Sabat is that culture, our original culture, which many people have forgotten or were not aware of. And what is happening now, people will say, they will attribute a particular culture, they will use the word culture to people who don't have a culture. Because when you start to ask, what is it that you do that is original, right? You know, then you'll start to say, okay, but what you're calling your culture is not your culture. You borrowed it from other people and claiming it to be your culture, but it's not your culture. So if you start to look at the people that do have a culture, you're going to look at people like, let's say, you're going to look at people like the Chinese, like we said, like the Olmecs, the Zoroastrians, the Sumerians, the Egyptians, but they all come from our culture. Everyone borrowed from us, and then it became what people are calling ancient Egypt. And they will all tell you Egypt is one of the greatest, in fact, the cradle of all civilization, because everyone went to learn and borrow from ancient Egypt. And then, the other places like Sumer or the Sumerians, and then, it just got watered down into other cultures. So if you're saying it sounds like a culture determines what our perspectives. There's not really perspective, because your culture is what makes you unique and different from everyone else. What exactly is going to happen in 2030? Like, what is going to happen to those who will not be picked up? That is why we have the scrolls. The master goes into detail. We're not going. When you say exactly what you think, like we're going to list everything that's going to happen in 2030. Many catastrophes, many things will happen. So, read the scrolls, read the updates, which the master teacher has put out to explain what's going to happen. In fact, you can just look around you and see that things are being set in motion, in terms of, you can see the chaos on the planet, you can see the wars, you can see the fighting and so forth and so forth. You can see how civil liberties and things like that are diminishing. You can see how, and it all depends where you're going to be or what you're doing. And that's why we know we have a guide, we have the master teacher, and why it's so important for us to come together and do what we need to do in order to, get him out, so that he can guide and give you more information that he's not going to give out just like that to anybody. It's going to be, through mouth to ear, to those who are actually worthy to be. What are you doing to be worthy to be amongst and be around the master teacher? You see, so are you close? Are you getting involved with the community? Are you helping to build? Because it is about building. It is about anything that we're saying we want, we have the ability to do it. Anything. But it takes coming together. It takes organization. So, yeah, if you want to be involved with that, Wu-Sabat is here to help you do that. We are one, Tobias Williams. We are one, but at different levels, at different density levels, different vibrations, different frequencies, different tones. Yeah. Jasmine, Rahubat. Yeah, let me see. Risk means blessings in Arabic. Rahubat also sounds like Maharba, which means salutations in Arabic. I really want to learn more. Yeah, this is another thing. Because our language is the first language on the planet, all others come from it. So when you learn Miss Batia, you will see the similarities that were borrowed from it. And so it's kind of like backwards to think, like, for example, you're dealing with Arabic, which evolved from, like, let's say 1400 years ago, to when you're dealing with beings that were here millions of years ago. In fact, we don't have a birth date, because we predate what people are calling the moon, the stars, the sun. We predate all of them, you see. So we don't actually have a birth date. So everything comes from us and our culture, regardless of what you may have been told or fooled to believe. So what I'm saying, we've got to look at things in our language, in our culture, in what we teach and what we're saying, because it's our story, not someone relaying his story, which we say history. So it's his story, but we have to now tell our own story. No one can tell you your story when they weren't there, when you were there. Kion More, what scroll goes in on our parents, and can you touch on our parents? We are just renting our parents. Right, so yes, we have many scrolls that go into that. As you say, pay rent means the people you're renting until you become independent. So 30 spirits goes into it in terms of letting you know how who you're composed of, both male and female, from your mother and your father's side. Then, you know, go into their mothers and their fathers on both sides, going back 4 generations and beyond. So you can actually learn a lot from knowing your family tree. I'm just looking through some of these parteracts to see if I can give you, okay, some more. But yeah, 30 spirits, soul, spirit. There are so many. Conscious being. So yeah, when you say more, your DNA, your composition is made up of the people that you come from, as in your parents, going back, as I said already, 4 generations. I'm just trying to see if I can find. Yeah, so I hope that helps. You see how many parteracts there are. Soul, spirit, and this is the one I was just mentioning. 30 spirits goes into it. So many scrolls go into it. The Gospel of Yanun on the Sacred Feminine. Is God male or female? Diagnosis of the races. I'm just seeing if there are more that I can give you. Yep, you all's name. The Golden Children. There are so many. And we've covered some of these already, so you can check on the channel. But yeah, so read Genetic Kiss, Actual Fact. That will definitely help you. That's that one. Genetic Kiss, Actual Fact. Number 109. Okay. Right, let's see what else we've got. Yeah, I posted a link for those who want to really get involved and help and build and come together. It's in the chat. Okay, let's see what else we have. It's amazing you say that, because through meditation, I always felt the missing cases globally was these beings already here. I have missing. Okay. Rahubat Zamal, can you explain what does it mean when an individual can see transparent outline of objects or its geometry, and you unconsciously move a object without touching it, but you was going to? Okay, so that can relate to many things. However, when you start to develop yourself spiritually, you can start to see interdimensionally. This is what, when we say clairvoyance, that's actually like clear vision, dealing with like your spiritual eye. And if you've grown to a certain level, you can actually see many of these disembodied beings that we talk about. You can actually personify beings that are here, but they're vibrating on a particular frequency that you can't see them unless you can raise your vibration to that. The other thing, moving objects, that's really referring to telekinesis, and also psychometry, which is object reading. But you have to remember that ultimately, everything, we can't stress it enough, it's all energy. And you can move things by sending certain vibrations, so it's like how, let's say, a dolphin uses echolocation, and what that does is it will be a wave will be sent out, and it will hit an object and reflect and come back. So it's kind of like, imagine you were blind and you were walking. You need to know where objects are. So, the aid of a stick might hit that object and okay, move in that direction. So you might be moving or hitting or being able to personify things from other dimensions. Because remember that many beings are here at the same time, just on different density levels. It's just like yourself, right? Although you might only see your physical being when you like touch yourself, you give so much attention to your physical being in terms of you bathe, you wash yourself, you feed yourself, you brush your teeth, you put on your makeup, all that stuff. It's all for the physical you. But you'd be aware that you have the inner being, the real you, that is composed of higher vibrations. And even though they tell you that two things cannot occupy the same space, that's not actually true, because they can. It's just that they have to be at different vibrations or density levels. So you are made up of different beings. So your physical being, your spiritual being, your etheric being, your soul being, your mental being, they're all connected, but they all have different nutational rates, and they vibrate at different frequencies, but they're all connected, and they're all in one of the same space that you move around with. And then that connection connects you above to the higher realms in terms of your etheric being, with your etheric cord to your etheric parents, and so on and so forth. So yes, you are occupying the same space, but at different density levels. You follow? All right. Yeah, so if your spiritual eye is open, then you will be able to have clear vision or clairvoyance to see between different dimensions. Ether, what exactly is going to happen in 2030? Like, what is going to happen to those who will not be picked up? Okay, if you read the Patrak I was there, which is here, we actually did a video on this already. Many things will happen, right? If there are famines and diseases and earthquakes and tornadoes and floods, then depending on who or where you are, you could get caught up in that. The meteorites might hit the planet. In fact, we've told you that. The Master's given us an update where he's given us that, as you say, 2030. 2030, 31, a meteorite's going to hit the planet. Some beings will be taken up. Some beings will be picked up and taken up for food, as we've explained many times. So it's very vague to say what will happen, because many things are taking place and will take place and continue to happen. So those who make the levels that is required to transform themselves inside out will receive their barythry gland, and there are different ways that you will receive it. Some may be transported to the Antarctica, where you have, these mantis beings, insectoid beings that are gonna replace it. Some will get it replaced in the submental, or shall we say, regrown or reactivated, because you still are able to have it, and others, an operation can take place without you knowing it, because of the advancement of our ancestors, who can stop time as you know it, carry out an operation without even cutting you, because their technology is so advanced. They can knit you up, like basically you're porous. They have ability to move the pores and go in, reinsert, reactivate, close it, carry on with time as normal, and you wouldn't even know that anything has happened. You start to know about how you're developing based on your abilities. What can you do? Because we all like to claim we're gods and goddesses, and we have all this knowledge and all this information. But then when it's time to do things, manifest things as a god or as a goddess, the abilities are not there, in terms of it's not about what you talk about and what you say, it's about what you do. Action speaks louder than words. So if you're God, do godly things, because God has to have responsibility for all all things. Any problem we have, as I said, as a god or goddess, we should be able to solve it, because God is supposed to know everything. He's all powerful, he's almighty, and that's you. But what do you do with this? And that's why we're saying now it's time to build. It's time to, whatever we want to do, whatever we want to achieve, we can do it. And that's where the master teacher comes in, because he's actually guided us, groomed us, taught us, given us everything we need to be able to now be the example of what a true, loving, caring, I use the word God, but it's really, we are supreme beings, right? Beings that are supreme in every sense of the word. We just have been given the wrong outlook on life, been given the wrong direction by beings that had an ulterior motive to dumb you down, suppress you, hold you down, tell you you're inferior, tell you to worship them, to follow and do as they say, and then promise you pie in the sky. And people have been waiting for this pie in the sky for 2,000 years, waiting for somebody to come and save them when they can save themselves. And the person that they claim is coming to save you doesn't exist. And he couldn't save himself, even in the story they tell you about him. You see, so we have to wake up and be the gods that you're supposed to be, and deal with actual facts, and deal with truth, and deal with reality, not this illusion. Rahubat caller, what's your name, where you calling from, and what's your question, please?
Hi, this is TBJ from North Carolina, USA.
Rahubat,
I have
TBJ.
a question. Thank you. Am I being too negative if I'm allowing things to creep into my brain? Like, well, I guess I'm going to be too old to become 2030 when it comes around. And the other thing is, like the sci-fi thing, with them making fake food and fake rice and fake meat. Aren't they at this point probably developing fake people?
Oh yeah, that's been happening.
That's going to replace us.
Well, again, you say us, not us.
Me.
You won't be replaced if you don't want to be replaced. And again,
I don't want to be replaced. I mean, I'd like to think I'm unique.
Right.
But
I'm saying, yeah, you're not too old. In terms of your soul, your being, your spirit, that doesn't get old. It's your flesh, your physical body that gets old.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Yeah, so it's
Because
all
I'm
about
the
the inner
energy
being.
that never keeps going and never stops.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
So it's about, and remember as well that there is a cure for everything, right? Even what people are calling death. The master taught us, like, the whole point is not to be focusing like on the negative, but more on the positive. Like, have that optimistic outlook in life. Enjoy your life. Do the best you can. Live Wu-Sabat. And no one can say for sure that they are going to make it and they're perfect and they're definitely going to make it. So all you can do is live Wu-Sabat to the best of your ability and follow the instructions that we've been given by the master teacher, because he knows the way. So it's like sometimes we do feel like dejected or our energy levels may be low, but then you have to look at who you're around, the environment you're in, and the things you're doing. And so you may need to be around other people who are vibrating on a much more positive or higher level, and then they will share that energy with you and that will pick you up, you see. Sometimes we're not in the community, we're not with family, and
That's true.
that's what we
Well,
need.
we're disconnected. But,
Yeah.
you know, when you start talking about aliens and things of that nature, people already think you done tipped the scale. So you don't want your energy reflecting to the wrong place.
Yeah, you have to be selective and know who to speak with, because if they're not receptive to it or they don't know, then sometimes you just have to leave them where they're at. You have to. I mean, if you try and you see that they're not receptive to it, then you just gotta like just leave them where you are, where you meet people where they're at, and sometimes people will be just so into it, just like, wow, really? I always knew there were aliens, and I thought I was going crazy, but now you're like amongst people who are like yourself, who don't think you're crazy, and then it's okay. But yeah, if anytime you feel a little bit like that, just go amongst the family, read some more, actual facts, part of that, and you find that it will help you. And again, if you're not connecting and doing the rituals to connect with your ancestors to ask for guidance, the chants we do that connects us with higher beings. So, no, you're not too old, and don't we've just focus on the now, and like you said,
there, I got it.
yeah, exactly. Like, tomorrow hasn't come, so why worry about it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Wadu.
All right, Wadu. Okay, let's take some more of the how that. Where were we? Yeah, so that 20, what's gonna happen? Yeah, it all depends on you. You have control over your life, and you have the best guide and the best, tools to live a great life, and yeah, to progress. We covered that already. We got another call. All right. Rahubat caller. Where you calling from? What's your question, please?
Robert, second. This is Jose from Zambia.
Hey, Rahubat, Jose. Yeah.
Second, I'm fantastic, my brother. Last Tuesday, you recommended me to read the book Concentration. And I'm about it. I'm enjoying it, by the way. However, there's something that pop up that I keep seeing consistently on the books, which is on the concentration book, is on the verse 30, 48, 52. Because we understand, or we understand that no one wins the race in racism, correct?
Tua.
And we also say that Wu-Sabat is for everyone.
We don't say Wu-Sabat is for everyone. We say Wu-Sabat is for everyone who will accept it.
Correct. Yeah. Very well put. Very well put.
Sorry, what verse were you looking at from concentration, so I can be on your same page?
It's 30, 48, and 52. But the question is simple. I think you can answer it without the book. Because my question is, why the books in general highlight the Coccozoids as Genin, the human devil, or bloodsuckers, as our culture is inclusive? This is a two-part question.
Okay.
Why the Caucasoid are constantly being called Jinn and human devil and bloodsuckers, and how we, or what's the right approach to deal with them, knowing their disagreeable nature?
Okay, it's a good question. The thing is that we're not it's not everyone, you see. So this is why words are very important. And you hear the term, whoever the caps fit, let them wear it. Because if you're not somebody that is behaving and acting in that way, then that won't apply to you. Do you follow me? So, for example, just because we say they're devils doesn't mean that they're the only ones that are devils. That's why the Masters got the scrolls. Are they black devils as well? Because it's a question to answer and put it to yourself and think, do you behave and act in a devilish way? And do you do devilish things? So what we're saying is, if you look at the nature of a being and the way they behave, if it applies to them, so when you say bloodsuckers, for example, you have to look at who or what is a bloodsucker. Then you think about Dracula as a being. And what does Dracula do? Dracula needs to suck the blood of a being to subsist, right? Then when you start to look on the planet and see who does that and go back to why somebody needs blood if they're not a vampire, right? You will go back and you start to look at things like, okay, Dracula is a story, just like Superman is a story, just like the whole Father Christmas is a story, but Dracula comes from beings that come from a constellation called Draco. And then Draco, Draco, ties into Draconians, right? Then you used to look at, right, when these Adamites were created, they are known as hemophiliacs. A hemophiliac is someone that their blood didn't clot. So if they cut themselves, they would bleed to death. So they had to get other people's blood or mix with them so that they can get the hemoglobin to make sure that, because the reason we heal when you cut yourself, you see, when you cut yourself, your body starts to knit itself back together, because when you get that scab or the scar, which when it basically rebuilds itself or reanimates, right? So now when you start to look at like things in history where you're dealing with vampires and dealing with beings that need blood, and then you go back to things like the War of the Roses, right? Which is a story about the European families, the Lancasters and the Yorks. And that whole story was about getting the blood. Even the slavery, what people consider slavery, was about the blood, because when you have that condition, every 400 years, right, you will die out unless you mix to sustain and keep your blood. You see what I mean? To be able to not die out. So what I'm saying is, like, the terms, and then you look at the biblical stories of these beings that are requesting blood all the time, blood sacrifices, blood to be sprinkled. So when what I'm basically saying, when you look at those terms and then apply it into the books, the nature, why does a person want to eat flesh like a steak with blood in it? But they call it rare, which means it's not cooked properly. And you start to look at, where does that come from? It goes back to cannibalism, it goes back to vampires. You start to look at, like I said, the things in history, and even till this day, why, when you go for any medical condition that requires them to look at your blood or take a blood test, why do you need to give like 3 jars of blood, when you only need a small amount of blood to look at it through the microscope to see what's in the blood. So then you start to say, what is the purpose of having blood banks? And what's happening to that blood? And why they ask for people to donate blood and give blood all the time. Because when you start to look at transfusions and transplants, when you take something foreign into you, your blood replenishes itself. So after a while, it's not going to last anyway because it's not going to be compatible.
Compatible, yeah.
So you then have to start to take many pills, like to maintain living for longer, because now that transplant eventually will not be compatible with you. So if you pick any of those names that you were saying, if you say killers, right? Okay, look in the history of the world and see who's the being that does that, going into wars, going into other people's territories and taking over. And like you start to see, like, wow, like it's consistent. So it's really at those beings or the people that act and behave in that way, you see. So they will give you the illusion that there's one person called the devil that has horns, that, you know, is in a place called hell with a pitchfork to basically distract your attention to what the word means, which is, it can, depending on which language you're coming from, it's a, you know, someone who's false or a false accuser or a liar. And you start to look at, why do they lie to you? Who does the lying and why? You see, so it's not about pointing at any particular person, but when you do look at the Adamites, this is what they have done over the last 6,000 years, to the point where there's so much chaos on the planet, and now they're being removed. And that's been done by their overlords and our ancestors who programmed their telomeres to expire after 6,000 years, to the point where the fertility rate is so low now that it's irreversible, you see. So there are actual facts to nature, natural nature, because certain things expire and have to become extinct at a particular time. So this is an inevitable thing. It's not something that can be reversed, because once judgment has been passed, there's an actual fact called no, it's a master secret, judgment upon the Adamites. You see, because the Adamites were actually created as a food source for these beings that like to eat flesh, and these beings tying into, you know, the Pleiadians that came from Taurus. These beings, you know, were like to the Draconians, stop eating us. You know, we want to give you a substitute, and if we do, will you leave us alone? They were like, okay, give us a sample. So they went about, you know, grafting and making the Adamites for food. It's just that they don't know this because obviously amnesia, and it's been like a long time, 6,000 years, and now the truth is starting to be, you know, told. And yeah, so this is why we do say no one wins the race in racism, because actual facts and facts are facts. It's not about race or, you know, racism. The facts are the facts, and natural nature determines what happens, you know. So did that answer your question? If not, then you have to probe further so we can elaborate if needed.
I think so. I think so. Well, because right at the beginning you mentioned that it's not about the race; it's about the disagreeable behavior, which can be, can come from anyone. Literally. So it's pretty much clear on my side, and I will dive into this topic on the scroll that you suggested, the Master Secret Judgments on the Adamites. And I'll pick it up from there. Thank you very much, my brother.
No problem. Every time. You're welcome. Okay. All right, Wadu. Yeah. Let's keep going. How are we doing in the chat? Wow, there's lots of questions. Okay, let me see if I've... Wow, there are lots of questions. So let me try and... I want to go through them quickly so we can answer as many as possible. Check Chaser, thank you. Every time Saken teaches, I have DNA explosion. That's how I know the knowledge is real. Yeah, man, that's how I feel when I hear the master teacher teaches on certain things. Dorinda Saken, were there other beings here before the Pataites? Yeah, like before, like came out of the waters. Yes, the thing is, again, when we say beings, we have to be so clear that they were humanoid or beings that came on and started to like walk on two, what we call feet today. But there were other beings in the waters, yes. There were other beings in the water because the waters of the planet was more water, and you had lots of different beings in the waters, but they weren't. So you're talking about, you know, beings that evolved with the planet. So we're talking about, if you go to the deep seas, there are so many types of beings, whales, and you know, all types of different sea creatures, octopuses, and all kinds of sea creatures that exist. So when we say beings, I think what we're saying is humanoid beings. But yeah, so to answer your question, there were other beings here. It's just that for us to come onto land and then go and start to walk on 2 feet. Remember, we had you had mermaids and mermen. Again, I was there, which is here. Really, that's a part of that goes into that. So, yeah. But in terms of the Natharu seeding the planet, so that we came out, as you know, as I said, there's a particular word I'm looking for. Pods. I can't remember the word. It'll come to me, or maybe someone can put it in the chat. But yeah, so yeah, there were other beings in the waters, and then we evolved because we had the DNA or the genetics of our ancestors. Like, you know, the dolphins, for example, they were seeded and then transported here. And then, because remember that when the planet was being terraformed, they had to transport other beings to deal with the ecology of the planet. When we say the ecology, we're talking about like the atmosphere. The atmosphere has been created, so we live in a biosphere, and so they transported like insects and plants and yeah, different types of beings here before, and then we came out. Oh, I'm trying to find the question. I've lost it. But yeah, I hope that's answered your question. Let me find where I was. I'm sure these questions are jumbling up. Okay, cover that. I'm just seeing this one, Keon. Also, you said you guys put up altars when communicating to the ancestors. What kind of altars? Or is it that personal? And what all do I need to do to communicate? Right, this is why we encourage people to join the Telegram group, because a lot of the questions you guys are asking are repeated over and over and over again. And we give you the exact information of what to do in terms of altar. People can't just stay on the outside or don't get close and just expect to like get all the the personal and the jewels of everything. So you got to come close. But yeah, go join the Telegram group. We've got like actual documents and everything that gives you step by step what to do and how to do it. In African spiritual systems, especially among the Yoruba, Akan, and Congo peoples, trees were living portals, roots reach deep into the earth. Yeah, that's what I was saying about the trees. There are trees, yeah, that there are trees that people may like try to cut down, and you will see the roots in the ground, and no matter what they do, they never get rid of them. But if you think about it, a tree underneath the ground are holding hands with each other, if I can use that term, and that can go on from miles, you know. So it's kind of hard to separate them. But yeah, that's a good question, and then they're alive as well, like, you know, sentient beings. And so yeah, natural nature. This is what we teach in Wu-Sabat, that we're animist and we connect with nature because we know that nature is real and it vibrates. But the thing is that these cultures or so-called spiritual systems that you mentioned, they all go back and come from Wu-Sabat, and parts of them got degenerated and corrupted or influenced by others. But the beings that belong to, like, if they're part of that culture, they will connect by way of their ancestors, but ultimately those ancestors will go back to the original people. So we do respect nature as animists, and yeah, so I'm just seeing if there are any questions. Which scroll covers 2030? All right. The master teacher put out so many scrolls, yeah, covering like the Leviathan books, the Millennium Book, the year 2000 and what to expect, the Luciferian conspiracy, secret societies on mask, the holy tablets, many books that cover many things all the way up and past 2030. In fact, the holy tablets talks about things that go on past 2043, 20. So, and of course, the updates. What you have to remember, we get updates which come out way before they actually put or compiled into books sometimes, you see. So when you say which scroll covers 2030, don't stay on the outside and think that you're gonna get all the information that is only shared amongst those
Are you ready to
who
speak to
have
Saken?
taken that time.
Cool, I'm giving him the phone now.
Twambo, Terry. Okay, we got a call. Let me take that and then come back to your question. They hung up. Rahubat caller, what's your name? Where you calling from, and what's your question, please?
Greetings.
Greetings.
My name is Kelvin Lule. I'm calling from London.
Okay. Did you say Kelvin?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so my question is, I have one question. It's about the master teacher. Because, I've been listening to Wu-Sabat for some time now, and back then I've heard you talk about that our main goal, which was given to us by the master teacher right now, is to make sure that he gets out of jail. So I would like to ask that, let me say, what if, I'm not saying that I don't want the master teacher to be out, but I'm saying, as Sabians, if we, are not able to get out the master teacher, does it mean that we won't be able to move forward as a community? Or let me say, right now, can't we, start building, a place like Tamari, like what the master teacher did, or it will only be with the master teacher around?
Excellent question. Excellent question. No, this is what we're saying. Like, okay, you got many parts to your question. The first one is we should be building, we should be doing what he has taught us, and that's why, as I said, someone else is calling. Hold on. That's why I said that. It's about building, and I posted, and I'm about to post again. I'll post it again in the chat that we have to build. We have to come together and do things that he has already taught us to do.
Okay.
We're not saying that obviously the priority is to get him out. That's always going to be the priority because we know that he's the guide. He's the one that knows what we need to do and what we need to do. But yes,
Yeah.
we are supposed to build and come together and do things, and we are doing that. And so it's both things. It's not that we're just gonna wait. But he also said, like, if we don't get him out ourselves, that means we've failed our test. And it's also like we don't really wanna we don't really wanna know what will happen because where you're gonna go, where you're gonna build, like I mean we're building anyway, but what I'm saying is ultimately we
Mm.
need him. We need his guidance, you see.
Yeah.
And he is gonna come out. But we have to unite. This is what he's asked us to do. We have to unite and come together because that's gonna show that we've actually elevated and learned the lesson. And if you look at all the teachers or leaders that came in the past, they have not been able to unite us to the level that he has. And now
Okay.
we literally, it's like we are at the finishing line. And you can see what's going on around the world, how we are actually now waking up. Wu-Sabat is spreading across the globe, and people are now seeing the tricks and not falling for, what I mean, like the divisions and so on. So yeah, I've just posted a link again in the group to do with, you know, how to come together and build for those who are really serious, because you get people that don't want us to come together. You get people who are faking the funk. You get people who it sounds nice. They come and they give you all types of promises and stories of how they're really about us working together and building.
Yeah.
And then the actions, or it doesn't last. And you see that, some people just think this is all about talking and entertainment. It's not. It's about us, like you say, standing up and being those supreme beings. And there's nothing you can think of. Like, we can't keep talking about we don't have this, complain about that, complain about other races when we can do it for ourselves. So we really don't have any excuses,
True.
honestly. We have all the knowledge, we have all the skills, we have what do we want? It's up to us. Like, and we're writing our own fate, as you say. Like, if we don't want to make it collectively, we're just gonna go back into being enslaved and subjugated. And this is not the day and time for that. So it's all down to us, and it starts from you, because we always point fingers at other people, but you have to look at yourself first. Like, what are you doing to solve the problems that we have?
Yeah.
And we can't do it alone. So we have to come together and work together. So yeah, you've asked a very,
Yeah.
very important question.
Then
So
maybe before I leave, I would like to ask one more thing. Like, since like you guys are talking to the master teacher, like, how is he doing there in prison? Because it has been a long time since he has been inside. Like, how is
absolutely.
he doing as a person? Like,
I mean, it's like when people ask that question, we have to ask it like, how would you feel? How would you do? And the reality is that he's holding on and doing his best, but he wants out. He wants to come out, and I would too. So and as you see, he still cares about us. He's still giving us guidance and giving us, information to help us. So yeah, he wants to come out. That's really how he feels. And what is keeping him, uh, you know, which is pleased about, is hearing more people, new people like yourself, and people that are receiving Wu-Sabat, and they're, letting him know that all this work is not in vain. Yeah. So the more, and actually seeing people being transformed and doing the works or doing their best to be the supreme beings that they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Right, let me go back to where I was. If I skip you, it's because sometimes I read what you're saying and it's just a statement or you're having a conversation with someone else. Right, Twambu, that's where I was. What does the concept of reincarnation relate to the continuity of memory across lifetimes? Yeah, I mean, like when you reincarnate, depending on what the overseers think, they okay. This is the second time I tried to answer your question and somebody has called. Rahubat, caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from, and what's your question, please?
Hi, Rahubat. Again, this is Heinrich calling from Lewis.
Rahubat.
Just a question that you guys have touched upon, but I'm not. I just wanted to find out a little bit more clarity.
Okay.
When a mixed African man have before knowing about Wu-Sabat and all that, have a child with a European, Caucasian. I know, I just correct me if I'm wrong. There is like the male give one of his chakras or something to do with that.
Yeah, correct.
His lower, yes. So for him to raise up or to get back that chakra, is that a particular chakra or is that of the chakras that we have? And how does he need to be with the Nataru woman if he's not married to that Caucasian and obviously have a child, but obviously he is single and now we've learned after that happened, we've learned about Wu-Sabat and all that, and wants to progress and do things right according to our old traditional ways. Okay. Would that mean that I need that means that does he need to have another child, or is there some other way that he can do to gain that back and to obviously be in that high vibrations? Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you again.
You're welcome. Yeah, I mean, you covered a lot of things, and it all depends on the situation. So, firstly, if you're with the person and you're staying with the person as a family, as a unit, then you guys have already bonded, and we're not here to tell people like to not be with who they choose to be with, right? So if you're together, you have children, and you have to just work together. And now, if the question is if you're not together and you break up, that's a different situation or different scenario. So you will actually be able to regain that, but then you have to mix back with a Nagaru female as a Nagaru male. If the female goes back to a Caucasian male, then basically she will regress back to what she was. Because remember that there's an actual update that I don't have with me, that I'll try to see if I can find it, that the master explains about that question. Let me see. I will try and find it. But yeah, so it all depends on the circumstances, and if you know you choose to be in a situation, then you have to deal with the consequences that come along with that situation, and you have to basically know that, like you said, if you didn't know, you didn't know. So you just have to, you know what I mean, live and be happy and be just, you know, be the best you can in that situation. But if you separate, or like you say, you want to regain, then you will get it back by mixing back to a Nagaru female. I do hope that's answered the question, but if there are any further clarifications that you may want, then yeah, feel free. I'm gonna see if I can find that breakdown I want to read, if I can. I got another question. Yeah, come. I'll have to find it. But join the Telegram group, and I will post it in the Telegram group. The part that I'm talking about. Rahubat caller, what's your name? Where you calling from? What's your question, please?
Rahubat.
Rahubat.
What's going on, brother? I'm pretty much calling because, you know, I want to get your, I guess, your opinion or your advice. I'm new, like I'm just now joining YouTube creation, okay, and I wanted to get into, you know, religious, talk about kinetic science and stuff like that. So my question is like, how can I be successful at it? And also, like, I noticed that, is it a good topic to talk about? Because I noticed that sometimes, you know, like you look at these streamers today, they don't really talk about anything informative. It's just play, and they get a lot of views. While, you know, people talk about religious, they seem to not get as much subscribers as the ones who just don't talk about information. So my question is like, how can you be successful in the information field, and how do you like be successful in this type of realm of this topic, this based on these topics?
Okay, but when the topics of, because you said religion.
Yeah, because I want to get into more, talk about kinetic science, talk about Kemet and ancient Egypt, and you know, stuff like that.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, but getting into that religious field, I noticed that the subscribers usually like 30,000, 20K, 60K, some 100K. But if you look at streamers, you got millions of views. Some people have millions. You know what I'm saying?
I got you. So
what do you?
Yeah, so the first thing you have to define is, what do you call success, right? Because success means different things to different people. It's success.
To me, it's make enough money.
Right. Okay. Now, then you have to say, are you doing it for the money? Because some people just do things for the money, and just because something is seem to be successful or popular now doesn't mean that it will always be that way. I'm saying that to say that you have to look at why you're doing it. If you're doing it to save people's souls, and you're doing it because of truth, because truth is not something that it's as popular as it's supposed to be, because many people have been sold error and have been misguided, and have gone the wrong way. So it seems like it's not successful now, but truth is something that is the future, and everybody wants to know the truth, even though it may take people a long time to come to it, and it's all about the vibration on the planet. So if you look at something like, let's say, something that just came and then became very successful, right? Something like, let's say, even cryptocurrency or Bitcoin or anything like that. When it first comes out, it's only those who know the value of it that jump on board. I think I made a comment the last live that, you know, Wu-Sabat is like that valuable that those who are catching on, who are ready, who are now awoke, they know that, as I say, Wu-Sabat is the future. So
I
it's
agree.
going to become more and more something that people want, because you cannot sustain and live on lies, because it doesn't feed your soul, right? And you can see
Right.
that that world is coming down now, where everything is becoming exposed. Lies are being exposed. Things that were once hidden are now being exposed. So eventually, most people are going to want to live by truth. And if you don't, then you're going to fade away with the dying world of fakeness, lies, misinformation, and so on and so forth. So you have to position yourself in the position that you know is going to grow and become the norm. So, like I said, it's not about doing it for money, because if we were doing it for money, there's so many, there's so many, like you say, channels you watch that they just really not teaching you anything. It's just pranks and all kinds of nonsense, and
Right.
they get lots of views. But people are waking up and want substance and want the truth. So, but I do know what you're saying. It would seem that way because it's starting out and it's growing. But listen, we
Yeah.
can reach millions of people if we just helped and shared. Because remember that when you're alone in terms of your uniqueness, you're gonna get people that will be, like I said, I gave the example with the, like, say, cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. When Bitcoin first came out, no one really knew about it. It was only a few people, and what it was worth then, people didn't see how it's gonna be what it is today. So
Right.
we know this is the real deal. That's why we have no one else on the planet is doing what we're doing. So imagine that. We're the only ones that are taking people's questions live. We're available every day on Telegram. We do lives every Saturday and have been doing this for over 50 years. So it shows you how
Right.
the longevity, and we are the only ones who have a being with 76 trillion years of knowledge. So after a
Right.
while, those guys are going to run out of information, because you can only say the same thing in so many ways,
So
so
many
many
times.
times. Whereas
Right.
we can keep going, because there are so many people that have questions about things that they've not been told or taught about. So you just have to
Okay.
start reading and studying, and you will see the change in yourself.
Well, I definitely have to say, when it comes to like my purpose in life, you know, pretty much is it just for money or is it for something more than money? Of course, I definitely want to make money out of it doing something I love, and I think that would be successful. Of course, but the stuff that I feel like personally is that my purpose is, I always thought as a young kid to be somewhat of a priest, but that's never been in my heart. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But I'm like, now that I'm older, I'm noticing that, of course, the Kemetic and the Egyptian, of course, and as well Wu-Sabat as well. These Egypt topics seem to be, I think is going to be in the future. And I think that, me helping out people is my calling, waking them up to the truth and stuff like that.
Right.
But I also want to have fun doing it, man. I don't want to be that teacher is just, she's just like, okay, here comes the next class. I want to be a teacher who's like a gang leader. I'm not saying
No, I
I'm
know.
not saying,
But this is where it starts from you, and it starts from, like you say, like your purpose. And Wu-Sabat is the way to find out really what your true purpose is. And like, it's about coming closer. You have to start from yourself. You have to learn, and then as you're learning, you will find the way that you have your purpose, but we also have a collective purpose, as the caller previously was asking, that our collective purpose is to free the master, that we can build a world and live in the world that we want. You have to be the change that you want, and so you have to come close, come work with the family. You can't be in isolation, and that's why we're here. So yeah,
Definitely.
work your
So,
way to
so,
yeah.
so do you think? So do you think? I definitely about to link up with you guys on that, because like this is something I'm really about to dedicate my life to. But it's like I'm gonna ask you was I noticed that you answer a lot of different questions from people from all walks of life, and when I do look at YouTube, I do see that you're the only one doing it in a similar in a way that's just uniquely your own.
Right.
So my question is like, so do like doing something in the game was nobody done before in YouTube, would that get you like that success that bring you over the top than everybody else? So like I noticed that.
I hear you. But the
Yeah,
thing is
everybody
that
got that one thing that's original, you know.
right. But the thing is, YouTube is it works by algorithms, and that's why we always ask for the support of people, because if it's based on the amount of people that like and share, and because the algorithm deals with it's AI really. So if we like content and we don't support it and we don't share it and we don't help it to rise to the top of the search engines, then you can have the best content in the world, but if it's not being shared, that's why, as simple as it may seem, when we say please like, share, send it to other people, then yeah, that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that we reach as many people as possible, but not everyone is going to gravitate towards it, because the devil has done a good job in confusing and hiding information to the point where when you people don't want to actually, some people don't want to know the truth. If there's a natural burning or yearning within you to know the truth, you will find the truth. But some people want to put their head deep in the sand and don't want to hear the truth, because they think by hiding away it's going to go away. They say ignorance is bliss, but it's like
Yeah.
it's just
That's why I think
ignorance.
about these pranks
It's
nowadays.
not
You
going
know
to
what I'm
change the
saying?
truth. Yeah.
Yeah, people doing these pranks that somewhat like internet drama
Yeah.
seem to be,
It's quality
here
versus
today, gone tomorrow type of thing. So
quality versus
definitely want.
quantity. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think? What do you think would be a breakout? Um, like if a new person, what do you like to see something new from a new creator? Like what do you think of that breakout you would like to see just for you personally?
To be honest, we kind of focus on Wu-Sabat because Wu-Sabat covers everything, and it's there to help people and to bring them to know about, the master teacher, right knowledge and the right understanding, which is going to take them to a level in their development as a being higher than anyone else can. Now, when you do something that you're passionate about, something that you care about, and you're not focusing on the money, then you're already a success, because the money and material things will come, because it's about the frequency. It's about the more you give, the more you get. And people don't really fully understand that, because they try to chase things rather than allowing their vibration to attract what they need. So I'm saying to you that just find something you're passionate about, and there's nothing for me more passionate than to see someone reach their highest potential and someone waking up from the matrix. It's like, the movie The Matrix, when you unplug someone from the matrix and they get to see like they're being controlled and it's an illusion, and they think they're going somewhere, but they're just going around in circles, and their whole being, because you have to remember that this is not the end. Like, this is the lowest, like the material plane and the physical plane is like, you have other existences that you can experience if you raise yourself to that level, you see. But when you're dumbed down, you just keep repeating this cycle over and over and over again, not having the ability to reach these higher dimensions and experience other worlds and other types of existence. So there's nothing to me that is more rewarding than to see like when you turn that light on in people, spark them off, and get them to be able to like see reality for what it really is, and to live a loving, caring, peaceful life that they would not be able to because they're enslaved by, the matrix and the system. So, yeah, I do. I was just gonna say that. Yeah, I hope that's helped you. But come closer because, you know, working together with others is always gonna help you elevate even further. All right.
Okay. Okay. All right. Oh, question. Last question before I go, man.
Sure. Go ahead.
Do you guys help brothers to become successful?
Absolutely. We not only help brothers, we help everyone, male and female. And that's why I say come close. Let's see, because it all depends on what you're trying to do. And Wu-Sabat, we are professionals in every in every facet of society. So our main goal is, as I said, to unite, because there's power in numbers, and unity is our strength. So that's what we have to focus on, and with that we can achieve and do anything. So when I say come close, that's part of it. Come close and let's see who we can work with and who is actually serious, because talk is cheap, action speaks louder than words. So
Words.
yeah.
Okay. Hey, man, thanks a lot, man. You definitely helped me out. And I noticed that you don't even do it for the money. You do it for the thank yous. So, but
Yeah, absolutely. We do it for the master teacher, because he's never done it for the money. Like, it's just always been about waking people up and saving souls. All right, so yeah, until the next time. Yeah, and I hope you are in the Telegram group and we can continue our conversation offline. All right.
All right. Thank you so much, man.
Wadu. I got my Ethereum friend in the house. All right, let's go on to the questions. I think I was trying to answer. You all see how quickly the time goes, right? It's like, yeah, shout out to all the teachers. Remember, OSM Vision, Wu-Sabat Live. You can always learn something. Like, just have it on lock and just watch and learn and read and listen to all the classes. We've got our good brother Sabat, our good brother Kafre. We've got some, great teachers that you're gonna see and learn from. So tune in to Wu-Sabat Live. Yeah. Obsidian Stone says, yeah, I mean, you have to live and be in harmony with those who want the same thing, because you can be in an environment with someone that constantly upsets your peace, you know, and you have different natures, and you can't really, even their books, religious books says that we were made into tribes so that we will know of each other, and you can coexist without mixing. The mixing is what brought the confusion, but of course it's already here, so you have to also balance and live with live with each other in a harmonious way. All right, let's keep going. I don't know how to pronounce your name. Is it Psychic Mike? Thank you for your kind words. Oh man, you guys are giving us some very good feedback here. Obsidian Stone, from the initial meeting, the two have always been at odds. It's like the yin and yang, right? You have to have agreeable, disagreeable, positive, negative. The duality on this plane is required, but it's not meant to be imbalanced. So every time the imbalance happens, like with the dinosaurs, you had the carnivorous ones and you had the herbivores, and it was imbalanced. So they had to get rid of them. And so yes, it's all about balance, and the planet itself is alive, and it's also the one that is actually getting rid of, what is causing it pain and suffering. If you look at the planet itself is alive. It vibrates, it pulsates, it has a vibration and a frequency, and it has liquids in terms of water and oil and other liquids. It has life on it. So when you're dealing with beings that are harming it in terms of poisoning the waters, cutting the trees and constantly taking and digging the minerals and creating all types of havoc, the planet itself will get rid of them. It's just like if you have a cold or you have something that is itching you, you're going to get rid of it, right? So the planet is doing this. This is what's happening with the extinction of man infesting the planet with all kinds of chaos. So the planet is doing its own cleansing. Yeah, so it's about beings that want to live in peace and harmony with nature. Okay, so it's going to happen, and it's happening naturally. Okay, trying to find more questions. Thank you, sir. I just did any communities near Oklahoma. Go on our website. Yeah, okay. I see somebody has already posted the link, unitedsabiansworldwide.com, and find your local community. If not, go to the one that's closest to you. Okay, cool. I can see. Make sure. Okay. I'm looking for questions. That's why when you hear me silent, in fact, let's have a little juice. Oh, I couldn't find the quote I was looking for the I'll definitely find it for next week, and I will post it in the Telegram group about the mixing and the losing of the chakra. Can evil humans be trapped in some type of realm and turn into... This is from Ether. Can evil humans be trapped in some type of realm and turn into evil spirit forever? And what happened to their soul? Yes, they can. This is why it's not good to lose your soul, because there's a recording the master says, for people that he said he doesn't want to even like wish that on anybody, what will happen. Is the sudden death of one world and the dramatic birth of another simultaneously? It depends, because you have basically contraction and expansion. So it depends when you're saying the world as well, because like this world we're in, if you're dealing with our solar system, if if the sun burnt out or imploded or exploded, it will affect and it will rebirth maybe new forms of life or planets and so on. So yes, it doesn't always happen simultaneously, because one world can die and then another one's born at another time. Okay, this is ninth intellect. Were the Pleiadians the sons of God that went in onto the daughters of men? If not, who were the sons of God? 2, were the children of this event the 9 to 11 giants called Nephilims? Yes, absolutely. And when you say Pleiadians, they're different beings that come from that the Pleiades constellation. So beings from like Arcturus. But yeah, these Anunnaki are the ones that we call the sons of God. And then the second part were the children of this event. Yeah, that's what happened, because these beings, as you said, they were like, yeah, 9 to 11 feet, and they gave that offspring. This is where you get those beings that you see on the planet that are very, very tall, because it's all about DNA and genetics. And prior to that, the beings on the planet were 5 foot 4 inches for the males and 4 foot 5 inches for the female. So the heights were not, like you're saying, 6 foot, 7 foot, 8 foot, 9, 11. That came by way of the mixing, and then the offsprings were now different heights. Those are your disagreeable beings, the giants. Yes. Greetings. I'm Cape Town, South Africa. Do you guys have a movement this side or a shop where I can get books? We've covered that already. Okay, I don't see questions. Oh, we've got another question, another call. Greetings, caller. Rahubat, what's your name? Where are you calling from, and what's your question, please?
Greetings, Saken. My name is Shane. I'm calling from California.
Hey, Rahubat.
Rahubat. I was just listening to your presentation, and I just had a question on something that you said.
Okay.
Regarding an asteroid impact.
Mm-hmm.
So you said that some of us are going to be picked up. Are we going to be like picked up by other humans, or like by alien beings? Some of the beings you show in the books, like the fat ones and like the bug looking ones.
It depends on who you are. So because you remember that the different extraterrestrial beings have offspring on the planet. Excuse me. So our ancestors will pick you up in crafts if you are worthy, and if you've made it, and if you've been selected to be picked up. And if you're not, then you may be guided to a safe place, like it happened previously in the past. When meteorites hit this planet, you had different beings that survived, that knew what to do. And at the time, that was the Watusis, the Pataites, and the Hindu beings that survived. And they went into caverns, or they were, guided into certain places, and then waited till everything had resided, and then came back out and started to populate the planet again. So it all depends on the impact. It depends on the person, how developed they are. It depends on whether they're guided or know where to go or what to do, and where they are on the planet, and so on and so forth. So we know, as that's why Wu-Sabat is here to teach you and prepare you if you apply Wu-Sabat in terms of what you're being taught by way of the master teacher. And that's why the word Partarat, or the words Partarat, mean the way, or Partaruk. So
Got it.
The guidance. So if you're, this is why we say some people are just wasting their time, in terms of they're not actually applying and studying and implementing Wu-Sabat in their life to transform themselves. And the master teacher teaches that your inner being, if you know you have an inner being that is far more valuable than the physical one, then you should be getting in tune and learning about that being. As I was saying earlier on, most people are preoccupied with, their physical, their hair, their eyes, and how they look and what they eat, and they don't do the spiritual things for the inner being, such as the fasting, the meditation, um, the spiritual aspects of abstaining from things to develop your being, your spiritual and your soul to the point where you can inherit a body if you have a strong inner being, right? Because you can actually, like, if you think about how you came here to be what you are today, your pure energy being that has come here and taken on bacteria by way of the flesh that goes back to the ground once you're kind of like leaving or transmuting this plane. And if you're not strong enough spiritually, then you won't be born in the other realms or existence. Just as you have children that come here, they may be stillborn, or they have what we call a premature birth, or so they're not fully developed. There are many things that can hinder your coming here. It's the same way going back the other way through the vortexes to go back, or if you're fortunate enough to be taken in a craft, and even then you have to clean yourself inside out and develop yourself mentally as well as we say, spiritually, that will help your soul to be strong enough to be able to transcend the realms, you see. So
I see.
it
I
all
see.
depends on you as a being. But of course, you have to be being around the master. You will be even more able to accelerate your growth as a being because you're going to be taught. And
So
go ahead.
would it be safe to say that all Christians and Muslims, like those guys who believe in Christianity or Muhammad, would it be safe to say those guys are not going to be picked up since they do not follow Wu-Sabat
Again,
and the master teacher?
yeah, absolutely. But it depends on the being, because there are beings in those, in those groups that you've mentioned that are sincere and don't know, like, in terms of they think and they're doing the right thing, but they don't know. So you can't be really judging what you don't know. And that's a very interesting question, because it can also come down to us, because we didn't do our job to reach them so that they do know. This is why we have to make sure as much as possible that everyone has had the opportunity to come into Wu-Sabat, because if we don't do our job, then we may be responsible for them not knowing. But at the same time, it's also a genetic doctrine, because once somebody is exposed to Wu-Sabat, they will have that, what we call a genetic explosion. They will wake up by the tone and the sounds of the master's voice, or reading his scrolls, or whatever way that they come into contact with him. And others, they're just not ready in this cycle because they haven't developed. And if you're still, in believe in the spell and caught up under the spell, then that there's something wrong, because you're not growing intellectually, mentally. Because how can you know something and feel something is wrong and still continue to do it?
True.
That's not growth. That's not right knowledge. Does that make sense?
Got it. Got it. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And hate to beat the dead horse, but why do they have to wait until 2030 or 2031 after, or right at the penultimate moment of the impending disaster? Why not today? Why not 10 years ago?
Oh, it's been happening. They've been coming and picking people up, and they're not waiting. There are people that get picked up all the time. However, you have to think about how they travel and where they're traveling from, and you're dealing with beings traveling light years away, and that some of them have to wait until, like, the vortex is open, or like gateways and portals open, to basically make it from where they're coming from. Like, intergalactical travel is not like as simple as, we jumping on an aeroplane and going, just, using combustion and the methods of, power that we use at the moment to fly. These are beings that when you're traveling those distances, you're dealing with avoiding, asteroid belts, avoiding planets, avoiding, they give you that kind of like depiction in like Star Trek or these type of shows, but the reality is you're traveling at warp speed and you're going to need to know, like if you think about an orbit of galactical bodies, they can take thousands of years or millions of years in our time for one rotation. So yeah, it's very complex and requires beings with high intellect and the type of crafts that can actually you know make the distance and not need fuel. And the type of fuel we have, you're going to run out, you won't be able to. So it's actually, it's not as simple as it sounds, but the vortex opens every 10 years and has been doing so since 1943, and every 10 years, so 1953, 63, 73. So beings come by way of that. And then now you're
Got it.
starting to see more crafts, orbs, and certain crafts have come. And so it's not like they're waiting. It's just that you have to remember that if the planet gets to a point where it's so bad in terms of, let's say, for example, the children of the devil, the Adamites, if they launch nuclear weapons or, atomic weapons, then that gets to a point where it's like, it's very serious and evacuation is going to have to be made. So it all depends on the timing and what is taking place on the planet at the time. But it's not like they're just waiting. It's the orbit and how long it takes them to go and come back. So they've made many trips and have found out that we haven't been ready for those who have, our ancestors have come to pick those who are ready up. And
Oh, okay.
we have a book called The Nine where it explains that. If you like, no, maybe not today because we're almost running out of time. But yeah, are you in the Telegram group?
I am in the Telegram group, but
Right.
like when I write, there's so many people in the group. Once you write a question, it's like, even right now I have like 1,000 unread messages. It's like the
Okay.
old school chat room. It's not that.
Yeah, it is
It's
very
hard for
busy.
one to one. Yeah.
Right, right. But you can always book a one-to-one with me if you want, and go through your questions.
Absolutely. I think I
Yeah.
might take you up on that offer.
No problem.
But
No problem.
can I squeeze one more question in before
Yeah,
before you go? Okay. So you also mentioned the biblical Jesus and that he could not save himself.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. As per the Bible, the KJV, he died on the cross. Because he was, a mortal man, and he just couldn't, do it. So I get it. But isn't that the same situation of the master teacher? He's in this body, he's locked up, and he can't help himself. He's relying on us.
No, not at all. One, the story that you're referring to was a story that has actually happened and is finished and gone and that's expired. Our story is ongoing. We haven't reached that point to say he can't help himself, right? So we can't say that to say, okay, what if he helps himself tomorrow? But the thing is, when you say himself, he's a try. He has different beings within one, right? So you're talking about the physical body, which is Malachi, yeah, which we refer to as Malachi, ZK, York. But the entire being that is his spiritual guide is Yanun. That being is not trapped. That being can go at any time. Obviously, that being has been selected in terms of to use the body of Malachi to do the work, but we are the ones that are being tested, and we say this all the time. So if we don't do what we're supposed to do, he will Yanun can leave at any time. There are many times where crafts have come to take him and said, "Let's go," because you're sacrificing and doing everything for these beings and these people, but they're still not getting the message, and they're still, still asking questions about the books and religion and all these other things, which is showing you, and they're still not learning how to unite and come together and do the things that will show that they've actually graduated or learned what you've given. And he keeps saying, no, there are some of them who are, and he chooses not to go. But the story is still unfolding, and really, until we get to that moment, we can't say that. So it's a completely
What
different
moment?
story.
Like,
I'm saying if
like,
if he walks out in the next couple of weeks or this year, then you can't say that he didn't save himself or whatever, because he would have been saved. You see, so I'm saying the story is still happening. It's not
still
over.
happening, still unfolding.
Yeah,
Got it.
yeah. It's like you're watching a movie, but you haven't completed all the scenes and got to the credits at the end. So you can't really say what's going to happen at the end of the movie until you get there. So that's a different situation. Whereas when you look at everyone else that's come and gone, they're gone. He's still here.
Got it, got it. And how would I feel like I have like 1,000 questions I could ask. But how would I book a one-on-one with you? Just reach out to you via the Telegram group?
Yeah, he's going to post it in the chat, just as I've just posted a link in the chat for those people who really want to build. Because we keep saying, it's the programming. We talk we can't, or like, and I always say we're Africans, not Afrikaans. So, like, literally, instead of us focusing on our demise or doom and gloom and whatever, why don't we focus on doing, like, for example, let's focus on getting him out. Then that whole narrative will change that we're talking about.
Indeed.
You see, so,
absolutely.
But yeah, look in the chat and you will see how you can connect and book your one-to-one. All right.
Absolutely. I appreciate you, Second.
Appreciate love you too. Take care.
What do?
Okay, right. Unfortunately, we're coming to we've got about 8 minutes left. So let me just zoom through the questions. DB says, what about the influx of these 10-foot females athletes? Yeah, a lot of these giants and beings, that's where you find most of them in basketball. This is why when we talk about the Nephilims and these giants, people exaggerate it sometimes, but really you're looking at some of the offsprings and the DNA is in these tall, mainly basketball players. However, you also got like AI and all kinds of technology in terms of, you see, the thing is, AI is going to get to a point, because when you look at certain videos now or social media, things look so real that you think they're actually real people, because the quality of the AI is becoming more and more realistic, to the point where you're not going to be able to discern or tell the difference, especially by way of videos and technology, right? So don't believe the hype, because some of these AI is putting out a lot of misinformation as well, and it can look so convincing that you think is real, because what you're finding is that you have reality that's been distorted and confusion to make you not know what's real from what's real. So you'll see real extraterrestrial crafts that people will film and see. Then you will see others that are not real, generated by AI or using some kind of like, Photoshop or whatever tricks. So, there are real ones and there are fake ones. There are real giants and fake giants that you're seeing. Unless you see them yourself in person physically, you can't say that is actually real, because like I said, the AI and the technology is becoming very, very sophisticated. Okay, Rock Appear, greetings. Could you shed some light on the origin of sin and the final disposition of sin. It's all about the spellings, the words, right? So when we say sin, a lot of people are just looking at that word, and then someone is giving you a definition what is sin, not realizing, depending on where the source of that word or that verse or that information is coming from, you're not going to know that sin is a person, right? A person known as Nana Sin, which ties into Nana, right? Which is the son of Enlil that is spoken about throughout the Bible and the Quran and all these books and given different names, right? And his father. So, for example, people hear the name like Shakar or Samuel or Iblis, Halal, Beelzebub, Lord of the Flies, Shaitan, Satan, the devil, right? These are attributes of a person. So when you read that Cain and Abel story in the Bible and it says sin lies at the door, it's telling you about this person who is beckoning you or saying, if you behave in this manner or this nature in the way that he does, then you're going to be taken in that direction. So when you say sin, you have to realize, okay, what was the first sin ever committed, right? They would tell you that it was the Adam and Eve, right? Sorry, the Cain and Abel story. And when that incident took place and he was banished, he was afraid that people were going to kill him. But those people would have had to learn sin from somewhere, right? So to know that they were going to kill him. Then it tells you that God put angels at the gates of the garden with flaming swords. So what are swords for? Why would you have flaming swords? That's a weapon. Who created the first weapon? You see, so when you start to look at what you're calling sin, it's all to do with being disagreeable or agreeable. And so when you say shed some light on the origin of sin, the origin of sin comes from the same beings you're calling God. Because if you say, who created sin? How did sin come about? People will tell you that it was the names I just gave, right? The devil. But if you then say, this is the contradiction, if you then say God is responsible for all creation and everything, then that means he created sin. And even if you try and do what religious people do, which is say, oh, he was once an angel and then he went bad, then that means that God doesn't have as much power as the devil, because how did he allow him to become bad or devil if he knew he was going to become a devil? Why did he not prevent it? Even then, after it, why does he not get rid of the devil and sin today, if he is able to do everything and he's all powerful and almighty and all these names that are given? But then when you look at the fact that he's not almighty, because either he's more powerful than the devil, or he's equal to the devil, or the devil's more powerful. It's got to be one of the other. It can't just be he's almighty, all powerful, yet he can't destroy or get rid of the devil or devilishment or sin on the planet. And then it's even worse, because he then says, I send in my son to come to the planet to remove sin. He comes and he doesn't remove sin. In fact, he gets unalived, right? And sin is still in the world. So what was the purpose of that? people say he did that to remove sin and for you to be saved. Saved from what or who? The devil that he can't destroy, because you go back and the devil that was cast out is going back into heaven with the angels. And he's like, asked, where are you coming from? He says, I've been walking to and fro on the planet. You see, and this whole concept is because people don't want to accept that God is responsible for sin. And till this day, sin is running rampant on the planet, and no God is able to stop it. The wars are going on. Romeo Starlon, thank you. We appreciate love your donation. Likewise, Kion, thank you. Much appreciated, or appreciate love, as we like to say. Is Wu-Sabat the same as Scientology? If not, what is the difference? Oh, I was just going to say, I've never heard of Wu-Sabat. No, Wu-Sabat is not the same as Scientology at all. Because Scientology is, yes, they're connected to some extraterrestrials, but it goes back to, what's his name? Hubbard. But anyway, what they try to do is use technology and science to try and remove trauma and remove parts of your memory so that you don't have the memory of the trauma, etc. But you are who you are, and there's a lot to what they do, which nothing like Wu-Sabat at all. All right, Wu-Sabat is in a class of its own. There's nothing like Wu-Sabat. But yeah, you can actually learn and deal with trauma and many things that we've run out of time, that might be holding you back, and that's part of you doing the exorcism on yourself by way of the scrolls by the one and only master teacher Panda Babianun. Okay, we've run out of time, family. Yeah, all right. The rest of the questions that we didn't get to answer, if there are any, you can ask them in a Telegram group, or come back next week, or ask on Saturday, because we have live classes on Saturdays as well, where you can join by Zoom, Telegram, and ask your question, or physically. Yeah, so once again, want to show you guys love, and remember to like, share, subscribe, and help us to reach. Remember, we hit the 100K. Now we want to hit the 1 mil. So we need your help to do that, all right? So tawakum, until next week. Wadu Moisa.